The Intergalactic Aerospace Expo floors are already in testing, and we got some interesting stuff, like, for example, this hangar elevator that is going to be for your cargo. So the cargo elevator is already in, and all these new interesting cargo containers. So it looks like some kind of dark energy container or something like that. Some of the more exotic ones I focused on, and you can notice the new carts of all different kinds that will be working with that cargo elevator that works inside your hangar. So there'll be multiple different kinds of hangar elevators, but this is the first one to come out, is this cargo elevator. And you can see this new forklift system. You can see the many different kinds of carts that will come out of there. And this is just a hint of the cargo deck that's in the hangar. It's already in the stations, I should say, where I strongly suspect a lot of these carts will live and kind of give them some realism. Additionally, the IAE had a display covering mining, and this just having some fun with it. And you can see some of the old school mining tools there. And of course, what would be IAE without Nerf guns. One of the more interesting things was they had 3 different days they were running through. Each hour they were flipping them over. And I noticed the old Glaive is on there, and it's rentable. Now, this is the old model of the Glaive. However, at CitizenCon, they mentioned they were working on these alien models, and they were intending to kind of bring them out in the next 12 months alongside the squadron stuff, or at least it was heavily implied. So if you haven't actually experienced a Glaive, I highly recommend on Alien Day, the first day of the schedule, jumping into a Glaive, renting one for yourself, and flying this thing around. When you spread these wings out in flight mode and you actually run around in this thing, it is quite a blast from the past, and you really don't fly it, you more ride it like a motorcycle. So it's really a fun ship. And you can kind of tell it doesn't like you, even the way it talks. Now, the Glaive, I believe, will be for sale. We saw last week it was up for only a couple of minutes, but it was listed in the store. We have a snapshot of that, and that may have been an accident. But the fact the Glaive is rentable on the floor and the recent FAC sale indicates that the Glaive will be for sale. Now, how extensive that sale will it be some kind of war bond only type purchase? Probably. And of course, that may ruffle some feathers with the older Glaives. It's also possible that they have a special livery on the new one to alleviate some of those things, because the Glaive is one of the more interesting ships. But if it got remodeled and everything else, would they offer it with LTI and everything else? I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. Back in the cargo area, once again, I'm focusing on these different cargo containers, and you'll note there's not the new MPUV variant on the floor, just a mule. I can't help but think the forklift really stole the show. And this is now on Tumbrel's section. Underneath, there's a massive space in the back, almost like you could fit a Storm and a Storm AA variant both back there, dare I say it. And I think that's what's missing here. None of the maps are in on the testing areas, so we can't like kind of glean what the rare items are or try to guess where they are that are not out yet, but we'll see. This is the Genesis Starliner on the Holo Viewer. I don't think I've seen very much that's new on here. But just in case this is not something you're used to, the Genesis Starliner has had a long history. The original idea was that it went back many, many years, back in the Wingman's days. It was first talked about, and some of the things Dev spoke about on the shows was the idea of it being modular, where you could have like a first class style all thing, maybe even like, different amenities inside, like a bar, all sorts of things, or an all economy, or a mix of economy and cargo, and some higher class establishments and such. But as the Starliner's kind of been developed over time, I think it's going to be pared down. You can see the small windows on the Holo Viewer. You can see the thruster layout, which is actually quite nice for Atmo alongside the wings. I think this thing is going to be not as great as everyone thinks it's going to be, but at the same time, it's what we need for intermodal transportation of flights between planets for interplanetary operations within the system, and then also outside of the system. Also, in the Holo Viewer was the Idris. So this is particularly the Idris-P. However, interestingly, it has its size 10 Exodus laser beam on the front, which is supposed to be for the K. Now, as a reminder, the P does already have that slot. The K is just a kit. So these items are purchasable in game. So it's not that big of a leap. But the display model on the end did say it's an Idris-P, and it had the flavor text of the Peacekeeper variant and how it's a pared down Idris, etc., etc. But just remember that the laser beam can be mounted to the P, of course the K, which is just a P with a bunch of other pieces taken on, added, and also that you can purchase in game, or the M series, which has the extra power plant for what you usually would have on an M, which is the railgun, which has a different type of feel and capabilities than the ion beam. Sorry, Exodus laser beam. So these are some of the more cargo containers. Again, I wanted to focus on the containers that are open are the most interesting to me, because those will be able to be closed and you can put whatever you want inside of them. I think as we start getting more and more cargo, having this ability to have a single container that will allow you to do a whole bunch of different cargo inside of a simple container for a delivery will make a lot more sense. So let's say you have 2 stops to make. You can put a whole bunch of goods inside one container and a whole bunch of goods inside another container, and stop 1 can be container 1 and stop 2 can be container 2. And especially when outposts come in, there will be tons and tons of these empty containers ready to go, unless over time they degrade on the surface of the planet and they're not maintained. But in general, the cargo is quite a lugger, I gotta say. Now, this is a small update on the SRV. The SRV's weapon racks do fit the new 2-hand tractor beam. It's 2-hand based on the legacy nickname for it, because it fits on your back. You have to use a 2-hand slot, so to speak. And then, of course, the multi-tool can also fit in the top there. Normally, these would be for weapons, where it's a pistol style weapon or one-handed tool, so to speak. And I'm using air quotes for those names. That's what the old school names were for SC. So that's a one-handed tool, and there's a one-handed rack. And then there's a 2 rack up on the bottom there, 2-handed. Even though, yes, both of them use 2 hands. And you notice you can quickly grab it just like a weapon, which is nice, especially on a vessel like this. It's not going to see a lot of combat. Ideally, I'd still put something in there, maybe a shotgun or something, like a Devastator. If we look at these, the lighting systems have been updated, so it's very nice to see that you can kind of really set the tone. And especially on the longer journeys, you can kind of just go easier on the eyes. And also, the restroom has fogged out glass now. So this was clear on the initials, unless you did some lighting changes. And like if you turn the lights off, I think it went fogged. But then as soon as you turn it back on, it went back to clear. And now it just stays fogged. Additionally, so we did some more testing on the SRV in general, but I'll be honest with you, the main attraction, the tractor beam, is still rather buggy. So one of the question marks we had was, if we combine forces with 2 SRVs, like they say you can, and in the concept art and everything else shows, can we move something big? So we went up to a Hercules, and I want to give a shout out to BioZombie for helping me out on this one. And we kind of stepped up and we said, let's see if we can make it happen. And we put 2 SRVs together. The beams were supposed to be functional, but it turned out mine quickly after starting use was heavily bugged out. So in these scenes when like we finally got our act together and we're actually trying to line up and such, it can lock on. It has no target though. So like the bracketing of the target is there, but nothing else. So effectively the beam is doing nothing whatsoever on the back of this SRV. And this is something multiple people have reported. I tried getting out of the seat, which is something I think a lot of people forget with multi-crew ships. If you ever have an issue like this, usually you can get out of the turret, jump back in it. In this case, it would be get out of the pilot seat, jump back in it, and sometimes that will fix the issue. But in this case, it went away and it did not come back. You can see I'm trying different parts of the ship, just trying my best to get some type of lock on with this thing. And that was not functioning, not working out. In general, the SRV, though, I think will be a solid ship. This is me getting sillily close to it, just trying to give it its best chance of success here. And then as we continued our operations, we even traded seats. So we traded ships, thinking maybe it was the pilot that the bug was attached to. But once I was in Zombies SRV, it worked just fine. So it's the ship itself will need to be claimed and then rebuilt. Basically claimed and then retrieved again. So like as if it was destroyed, which is frustrating, but or hopefully in a new build it'll just be fixed. But it's frustrating that the ship has like it's not damage. It's like as if the tractor beam doesn't work, even though the UI pops up, the turret moves around. It even has a small beam animation. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we tried anyway. We tried to move it anyway, and this is the results of the SRVs kind of doing this. You'll notice that the one I'm flying in, which is Zombies SRV, stays locked on, but essentially is stuck there tethered to the very large Hercules class vessel, and is basically only able to make it move slightly side to side, which is quite strange. You can see it here. It only slightly moves, and it's not in any helpful capacity. But it is quite a sight. And I mean, this is the future right here, is going to be, I wish a success story here. This is why I didn't make it a whole video. That you'd have a pair of SRVs that can do this job. Right now, it's not a function, or at least there's so many bugged out issues with the SRV's tractor beam that in this build, in these current builds for 3.21.1, it's less than ideal. In desperation, I tried to use a two-handed tractor beam alongside the working SRVs. So Zombie's back in his SRV, and I am working the two-handed tractor beam, and it does lock on, but it doesn't do anything. Also, interestingly, this is me testing the broken tractor beam just to confirm other ships it can't touch either, which is the case. Now, in general, I would say that you got to remember that this is, experimental PTU land. It's going to be buggy at best, but these give us a preview of what's to come. You'll notice the two-hand here has no problems at all lifting this cutter scout, and it fully can lift it. I did check with the owner before I started fiddling with it, and we are not ignoring dually. The elevators were broken on after we went all the way over to Crusader at Orson. The elevators to the rooftop were broken, and the CIG representative that was letting everybody in, I think he took a break, so we weren't able to get up onto the roof to take part in the event any longer. So that's kind of where we're at right now. You can see this tug of war being done between the two-handed tractor beam and the SRV, and the two-handed tractor beam shockingly is not out of the fight. I'm sure this will change over time because the two-handed tractor beam is supposed to be weaker. You can see the SRV starting to win, but the two-hander is actually still in the fight. I think I finally break lock. I think it is, and that's when it starts losing. So if someone is trying to run off with your ship or your friend's ship, if you have a two-handed tractor beam and you lock onto the ship, and it's not a size 4 type vehicle or ship, you absolutely can hold on to it with the two-handed tractor beam, and you'd have a pretty good chance of not winning the tug of war, but at least keeping the tug of war going, so they can't just run off with the ship. This will be handy for outpost people. I would probably recommend having one of these right near the front door of a building in the future when we finally have those buildings, having just a rack with one of these sitting there in case you have some troll coming by that isn't able to break the invulnerable building and high security outpost. If you've watched CitizenCon for the preview, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if in those situations, maybe they can game the edges of your space, or maybe the invulnerability does not apply to tractor beams, whatever. You can absolutely just break out a tractor beam to hold it in place. Now, that being said, the two-handed tractor beam does not currently work in Armistice, but I don't know if Armistices are going to be a thing on these invulnerable outposts or not. So I guess that's kind of a question mark in general. But nevertheless, wherever they are valid, they are quite handy and quite useful. I will note it's kind of hard to spin a vessel That's especially when it gets up in the air, and it has these large side VTOL like winglet type things. These things make it really hard to spin it with a two-hander. The SRV has an easier job of actually just yanking this ship up in the air and kind of giving it a different angle, because the ship can operate in a 3D environment. The SRV or any other ship, by the way, I've heard some very good things about the 315P. So it's not just the C1 and the SRV lately. It's also the 315P is quite a looker with its tractor beam lately. I'm trying to get some time in the seat with that. But on this cutter, on the example of this Cutlass, a cutter Scout, the SRV can climb up into the sky and can tow, so to speak, this ship in such a way where it can spin it around, even though there isn't like some proper yaw pitch controls yet on this tractor beam system. It doesn't matter. The ship can effectively manipulate this vessel in different ways until it has it the way it wants it. So you'll notice at the end of this video, that's actually how we get this back over again, is actually with the SRV. It makes it way simpler. Now, if this was like a Pisces or something like that, if we could actually move the Pisces with the two-hand, we'd have no problems. But here's the SRV doing its thing, and thank goodness it didn't take out our buddy, our new buddy. But it's a thing, and they're fine. And that's just going to show how this is going to be done in the future, ideally with a ship. There is limitations with the portable tractor beam. Now, granted, is it better than not having any tractor beam? Of course. And is it better than the multi-tool? Of course. But it's just I wanted to show you realistic testing expectations and realistic what you can expect when you start getting your hands on these tools if you're not already in testing them. And with all that, I wish you a good run up to IAE. I'm going to keep testing. You haven't seen me do any more Pyro videos lately because it is a PvP fun fest. And while not once have I been blown up yet, multiple times I've had to burn through a lot of flares and chaff in order to make the countermeasures operate, and blowing through racks of missiles and such to discourage people strongly. And I nearly knocked out, 2 nights ago, I nearly knocked out an Ion, just trying to visit sites on these locations. It is quite a fun fest right now, because you have this compression effect of, you only have these 8-hour or less periods for the tech preview. It's only 3 planets and a single larger station that are really in it, so to speak. So with those planetary body and their surrounding areas, plus the station, and then some smaller stuff, it kind of compresses everybody into one little spot, and there's no non-peak times. I can't just come on at, Oceania times or something like that and not have to worry about much with PvP. Every single time I get on there, I'm jousting basically above these locations, doing unfavorable fights in Atmo, and then I just have to scurry away, basically, chucking size 2s and 3s at people. And that's less than ideal. So I think the next time I get into Pyro to really do videos, I'm going to need an entire escort group and operate in that way. That takes time to organize. Not everybody has access to Pyro Preview, frustratingly. So hopefully they open it up to more people, and I get some time to really throw at it. I think that'll happen as content calms down on the EPTU. Right now, that's where I've really been enjoying, and I like bringing things to everyone and showing the community what's going on over there. So I hope you like these videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. I make these videos as much for you as I do for myself. Have fun, and happy IAE.